Hi, welcome to the example tutorials of how to create a XHTML document using cascading style sheets to design the layout. The first thing that you're going to need to do is create an HTML document. So you can use Notepad or Dreamweaver or another editor to just create a plain text file, and make sure that you name the text file with an extension of .html. For this exercise, we're going to create a document called example.html. Now, the next thing that you're going to need to do is add some text to the document to start to create it. It's important to have a certain order of items inside the document. So we're going to go through those. Alright, to create an XHTML 1.0 strict document, the first thing you're going to need to do is identify that. So we place this header on the page, and you can see it says doc type HTML public and provides a link to the document type definition that contains a list of all the tags that can be used for this XML document or XHTML document. Next line is that we are going to add the tag for that identifies this is an HTML document using the namespace of http://www.w3.org/1999/xhtml. This simply identifies that this is going to use a set of unique elements specified by this document. Now, the next part of this is where you're going to have to declare the head of the document. So in order to do that, you have a open greater than sign with head and then close it with the less than sign. Below that, you can add this tag, which is style, and then identify type, text, CSS, media, screen. And what this is saying here is that you're going to start to include the style sheet at this point. And the thing is that you say it's a style space type text / CSS. That says that it's going to be text that's embedded in the page. And then media simply says that where to use the style sheet. Now you can use the media tag for the screen, and you can also set the media tag for print, so that if you wanted to, you could have a different style sheet or set of styles for whenever you were going to print the document. Now at this point, what you will do is close the tag for style, and then you can open up your start writing your CSS. Now that you have the beginning of the web page set, what you're going to need to do now is add some CSS to start to style the web page. The first thing that you're going to do is add a body selector within your style sheet. So you just type in body, and then you have the curly brace and that's open and a curly brace that's closed. Next, what we're going to do is specify the width. So we're going to format this page for 800 by 600 screen, so we're going to set a width of 750 pixels. Now, in some browsers, setting the width is going to cause some issues. In this tutorial, we're primarily working with Firefox. However, in Internet Explorer, there are going to be different fixes that you're going to need to apply for it to correctly render in all versions of Internet Explorer. Fixing web pages to work within Internet Explorer is beyond the scope of this tutorial because there are a number of different techniques that could be used in this, and you can find tutorials online for how to fix different problems you may find with having your web page render correctly in Internet Explorer. Alright, so to test these web pages you should use Firefox. However, you may want to use Internet Explorer to see how there are differences between the two, Firefox and Internet Explorer. Now, the reason that there's a problem with Internet Explorer is that Microsoft has chosen not to follow the standards set by the World Wide Web Consortium for how CSS should be rendered and worked with. And in this tutorial, we're primarily going to work with the standard way that the web pages should be. Alright, so in this case, what we're going to do is set the width of the body for our page to 750 pixels. The next thing that we will do is add a declaration for font family. And all font family is doing is just saying what type of font should we use with this page. The next declaration is what you're going to do is set the color of the font to red. So use that, it says color colon and then the property of being red. And finally, what we're going to do is set the background of our web page to blue. So we simply have a declaration of background dash color colon blue, close it with a semicolon, and at this point we close the body tag by closing close the body selector by adding the curly brace to close it. And what we're going to do now is finish the style sheet by closing the style. Now, one of the things that we also can do here is, since we want to make our web page friendly for search engines, you should also think about what sort of metadata or data to describe the contents of your web page should be added to your page. And here's a basic example of what you can add to the page to describe it for search engines. This will make it easier for your web page to be found. And the way you do that is with the meta tag. So here we have an example for this page. We have you have the tag meta and the keywords element or attribute, and then you have the attribute of content, and then you have the tags. These are metadata tags separated by comma of CSS and XHTML. Now we have a description, and so there's a description of the page, and you can see that we have author, so Keith Williams is the author, and the link is basically just an email address that can be added for who to contact about this web page. So if you're creating web pages, you should add metadata to them to make it easier for people to find them. Close the head tag and add a body tag. And you can also close the body tag and close the HTML tag. Now, all of the content for your web page is going to go between the two body tags. And one of the things that's useful to use whenever you're creating a web page is what's called lorem ipsum text, which is basically just random Latin words that have been generated so that you can use some text for placeholders as a placeholder for your content that will eventually be added later. And so right here is an example of some lorem ipsum text. And what I've done here is generated some lorem ipsum using an online tool to generate lorem ipsum text. And I've added some paragraph tags to where the paragraph breaks would be for these two paragraphs of HTML or of lorem ipsum. So now let's take a look at what the entire web page is going to look like. So this is an overview of what the entire web page will look like. And now let's see how this page renders. And so let's preview it in a browser. And whenever you create this page, the web page should look something like this. And you can see here that we have the blue background and the red text, and the font is the American typewriter font that we specified for font family in the body tag. The reason we have, one of the things to remember with cascading style sheets, as you add elements, the previous element will, like for instance, the font family that we have specified here will be the font family for all of the text until we change the font family for a given element. So once you specify an element at the top of the HTML, or at the top of the style sheet, that will be enforced until it is overridden by a subsequent element. Alright, so now that you have the body properties set for the page, what we're going to do is to start to create the framework for the page, or the template for how your page is going to look. The first thing to do to create a page template is to define some divisions of your page using the div tag. You should then add the ID attribute to the div tag to identify what region you are using. So in this case, as you can see here, we have a div ID equals content, so this is the content region, and I'm specifying this around the text that the lorem ipsum text that we added. Now I'm going to go up to my style sheet area, and I'm going to define some properties for this area. And here you can see what I did was I just said the background color would be white, the border color would be black, border width is 1 pixel, the color is black. And now we're going to take a look at what this results in. And as you can see, this page, now the text, the lorem ipsum text that we added is on a white background. It is black, and you may not be able to see it, but there's a faint black border around the text. What helps to happen is that as you're working through a layout, what I often do is assign arbitrary colors or border styles of approximately 1 pixel in size, 2 different regions that I'm going to create using my div tags. This helps me work with them so that I can position them on the screen. Sometimes I use borders, sometimes I use pixels, background colors. It just depends on what I think my final design is going to have. If I think my final design is not going to have any borders, then I may not use borders. I would just use colors. If I think it's going to have some visible borders, then I would probably use the borders to denote it. So the next thing that is going to be necessary for you to do is to create some additional regions. For this layout, we're going to create a banner region, left nav, content region, and we already have the content region. And later in this exercise, I'm going to add a footer. The order in which you add these is important, so you should, the first thing that should be added is the banner, then the next thing is the left nav, then the content would appear, and then finally the footer would appear at the very end. You have to put IDs on them so that you can use that as the selector. You should call them what they are: banner, navigation, or left nav. And it's also important to use, for the area that you're going to have your content, you should use the selector called content, because search engines will identify that area as the actual content for your website and pay special attention to it. So once we add these regions, what we have is a page that looks like this. And right now you can see that you can't really see any lines or anything other than the fact that there's the red text. So what you need to do is copy the style definitions for content, banner, or for your content area, rename them for banner, left nav, and footer, and then you can change these if you want to be different colors, or if you would like. In this case, I'm just leaving them the way they are because I have the background that I can use to see where they're located. But you could also change the border width, or you could change the border color of the text or anything like that in these properties. So once I have this done, the page looks like this. Okay, now what I'm going to need to do is style and position the areas of the content area, the left nav, and the banner in particular. And in order to do this, what you're going to need to do is specify the location, the sizes of these areas. And in this case, what I'm going to do is say that my left nav has a width, the left nav region has a width of 200 pixels. Then, if you remember the box model, the margin of an area is the area outside of the border. So what I'm going to do is for the content area, I'm going to specify that it has a left margin of 200 pixels. And what that's all going to do is it's going to make my left nav 200 pixels and then move the content area over to the left 200 pixels. Or actually it's going to contract the left side by 200 pixels. And so what you can do is you can see how this looks right now. And this almost looks correct. However, if you notice that there's a blue bar going across where left nav is, you can see that's gray, and then there's a blue bar that goes across. What's actually happening is that the left nav region is being rendered. Then after that one is completed rendering, it is going down to the next line and rendering the content area. However, what I would like to have happen is that the left nav is rendered and then the content region is positioned directly to the right of it, kind of like word wrap in a word processor. So what I want to do is wrap that region, the content region, around it. And the way I do that is I add the float property to my left nav region. And once I do that, what you'll see is that the content has now been floated to left nav has been floated to the left, and content will wrap to the left around that region. So now now the blue bar is missing. All right, so the last thing I just want to say about CSS layouts is just to tell you that there is a CSS layout property that is called clear, and it has an option to clear both left or right. Now in this layout we don't need to clear any of the floats. However, in other layouts where you may have boxes embedded within each other, or you may want to have multiple columns of a layout, the clear property allows you to reset the float so that you can clear the left float or the right float of a box if you need to do so. You can think of the clear property as if you're turning on or off word wrap for a given region. Now, this will also illustrate another technique in cascading style sheets, which is the use of the class selector. As you can see here, I have a class selector, which a class is defined by in CSS by putting a period before the name. So you have period, clear underscore both. You have the opening curly brackets. You have the property, in this case clear colon both, and then you have the closing bracket or closing curly brace. You should use classes whenever you have a CSS property that you want to apply to more than one spot or location or division or area in a web page or in your style sheet or in your design. And so since I may want to clear both floats in multiple places in my design, I would create a class, in this case clear both, and use that in different areas. And what you can do is, as you can see here, just add the class attribute to a CSS tag, in this case the division tag, and then specify it to the name of the CSS class without the period. So I have class equals quote clear both close quote. And if I needed to clear the float for this region, I could use this here. Or if there was another region where I wanted to clear the float, I could add the same tag to that region as well. Classes are useful for maybe you have a particular font style or that you want to apply in only in multiple places of the website, or if you want to have some links styled in one way and another link styled another way within the same division, you can use classes. It's really just another tool in your toolbox of how you can apply CSS properties by selecting them. To wrap this lesson up, I would just like to go over a couple CSS techniques, and they mainly deal with menus. The menus on your website should be constructed using HTML link tags. However, in order to properly format a menu, the links need to be the menus, not necessarily the links that are within your content areas, but the links that are in menus for page navigation should be included in ordered or unordered lists. And those lists need to be styled so that they can appear as either being vertical menus or horizontal menus. So what I've done here is just add an ordered list tag, that's the OL tag, and then I've added list items here for link text 1, link text 2, 3, 4, and 5. And you can see here I don't have any URLs in here, but you would put the URL for the link location in the href area. So you'd have href equals www. or http://www.google, or wherever it is that you wanted your menu link to point to. So whenever I have this menu displayed, it looks like this horizontal list. It's got the numbers on it. It doesn't look necessarily like my menu that I would like, because this menu doesn't have any it has the numbers here. Most of the time I wouldn't want numbers here, and it's far to the there's a lot of space in between the left hand border and the text, and I would like to control that, so maybe I'd have a little bit smaller spacing there. And so what you can do is, for your menus, and now in this case in my banner area and in my left nav area, those areas I'm going to place menus. So what I can do here is select the banner by doing pound banner, so that's the selector for the division of banner, and then inside there any ordered list will have a padding of left 0 pixels and a list style type of none. And so it's not going to have any padding to the left, and the list style type is going to not have any numbers. And I'd also, what you can do is, once you declare that, if you want the same style to be applied to another area, and in this case I would like my left nav ordered list items to also have the same style because they're also menu items, I want the padding left set to 0 for those as well, and the list type style to none. And now what you can see here is now I've removed all of the numbers for each one of the links, and they've been positioned directly against the left-hand border of that region. A little trick to create a horizontal menu is very easy to do. What you can do is to specify that the banner region, by saying #banner, any list items in that area are going to be displayed in an inline way. And so whenever I do this, what I end up with is in my banner region, instead of having a vertical list of menu items, I have a horizontal list. So that will go across the top. Now the next thing that you may want to do with your tags is create what's called effects for a CSS pseudo class. And the way you do that is I can specify that my banner region, the A:link, the colon indicates it's a pseudo class, so for the A tag link, and for left nav region A:link, I can specify the color as red. If someone hovers over the banner region, all right, and you can see #banner A:hover, comma, #left_nav A:hover. That region is, or that, then that whenever someone hovers over it, a link, it'll turn blue. And here you can see the results of this. Whenever I hover over the link 2, it turns blue, and when I'm not hovered over it, the link is red. This concludes the lesson on XHTML and cascading style sheets. Lesson is by no means a comprehensive lesson on either one of these topics. Both of them deserve a lot more attention. However, I hope that the content of this lesson showed you the basic overview of how you can use XHTML and particularly cascading style sheets to create search engine friendly web pages. Thank you.